You said recently that you're going to write no more poems from the point of view of a male character, which seems a bit of a pity. An education for leisure, for instance.
I would find it very difficult now. I think it's to do with getting older, really. I think when you're a young poet, there is that sense of trying everything, keeping all the balls in the air. There's a huge energy and a rush and a sense of experimenting. And writing some poems in male voices, which again I did, is something that I don't think I could do now, because my enthusiasm for that kind of risk-taking is less. I'm much more kind of focused now on my own voice. I can't unravel myself from the lyric in the way that I could when I was younger. I'm too bedded into it now.
What's your inspiration? The South Bank Show, sponsored by the Open University.
A recipe unchanged since 1745. Drambuie, the spirit lives on.
Hello. Today we're going to demonstrate how to make spiffingly refreshing and tickety-boo tasty Krabby's alcoholic ginger beer. Take a chilled bottle out of the refrigerator, if you're lucky enough to win one. Serve over lashings of ice. And to finish, a slice of exotic lemon. George, the lemon please. Krabby's refreshing ginger beer, only for grown-ups.
At Homebase with Scottish-grown real Christmas trees from only $9.99. For Christmas sparkle, just add Homebase.
We all go through different moods every day. Only Twinings has a blend of tea for each one of them. Twinings. Discover the art of tea.
Every week there are hundreds of new offers at Summerfield. Buy one, get one free on Pringles is just one of them. For fresh offers this Christmas, pop into Summerfield.
Own the best comedy of the year.
What happened last night? Am I missing a tooth? Whose baby is that? What is going on?
The Hangover on Blu-ray and DVD Monday.
Jason has a mood cycle he wants to break.
I always used to be quite a happy person. I was always going out.
With help, can his self-esteem improve?
And it's just great for your social life and as a form of exercise.
Right, Jason, promise you a game of badminton. First to 15.
Make Me Happier, Tuesday at 7:30 on STV.
What's your inspiration? The South Bank Show, sponsored by the Open University.
Today I'm at the Welsh Writing Centre at Tynoed, and I'm here all week with the National Poet of Wales, Gillian Clark. We come every year and we run a poetry course for 16 writers.
I did drama and speech at school. Auntie Phyllis took me to King Lear in Stratford-on-Avon when I was 10.
Oh. How did you cope with the out vile jelly moment?
Fantastic.
Gillian and I structure it quite formally. We have workshops in the morning, every morning, from 10 till lunchtime. And they're basically fun. I mean, the idea of the workshop is to generate ideas for new poems. And then after lunch, we have one-to-one tutorials or meetings with the poets. And then after dinner in the evenings, there are poetry readings of our work. I thought I'd start with a poem where I first moved from Scotland to England. And this is called Originally. We came from our own country in a red room which fell through the fields, our mother singing our father's name to the turn of the wheels. My brothers cried, one of them bawling, "Home, home," as the miles rushed back to the city, the street, the house, the vacant rooms where we didn't live anymore. I stared at the eyes of a blind toy holding its paw. All childhood is an emigration. Some are slow, leaving you standing resigned up an avenue where no one you know stays. Others are sudden, your accent wrong. Corners which seem familiar, leading to unimagined pebble-dashed estates. Big boys eating worms and shouting words you don't understand. My parents' anxiety stirred like a loose tooth in my head. "I want our own country," I said. But then you forget, or don't recall, or change. And seeing your brother swallow a slug, feel only a skelf of shame. I remember my tongue shedding its skin like a snake, my voice in the classroom sounding just like the rest. Do I only think I lost a river, culture, speech, sense of first space and the right place? Now, where do you come from? Strangers ask. Originally, and I hesitate.
There's a poem called Originally, and the last lines are, "Where do you come from? Strangers ask. Originally, and I hesitate."
Well, that poem was written when I was remembering as an adult moving from Scotland to England, which my family did when I was 5 or 6. I have 4 younger brothers, probably only had 2 of them then. And we moved to a little market town in England from Glasgow. We had, obviously, Scottish accents, we children, and we were teased and kind of picked on by the English children. So when we were out of our father's house, we would speak or try to impersonate the local accent, which was English. But when we went home, my father would get very angry at this because he wanted us to still retain our Scottish accent. So we kind of were bilingual in an accent sense. We would change the minute we stepped over the threshold to speaking in Scottish again and then into English accent. So it's about that kind of anxiety of where you are from. Are you English? Are you Scottish? And in my case, it was further complicated because my mother's family were Irish. So there was a kind of layering of dialect and accent and different little words, but it was all the English language.
I was wondering the extent to which you see having the 2 languages or the 2 dialects as enriching.
I think for me it was something that made me, as a child, almost oversensitive to language and accent. And, of course, that brings in other issues like class, religion, sexism. All those things are kind of embedded and part of language. So I was always very conscious of my parents', I suppose, grief at our accent changing.
Yes.
It made them hear their change of country, hear the loss of their own country. But it did make me listen, and that, I think, probably was a great push towards poetry for me.
In one sense, it was a political household, wasn't it, through your father?
Yes, and well, more through my grandfather, his father. He was very political. I think he was originally in the Communist Party with great Scottish figures like Harry McShane. He was imprisoned for sedition, for occupying tenements in the Gorbals during rent strikes. But he, as he grew older, became more establishment. He was very much in the Labour Party, my grandfather. My father kind of inherited that sort of socialism, trade union activity. And when my grandparents visited from Scotland, the talk was very political. So I grew up listening to that quite male Labour Party music or rhythm, if you like.
And the school, you say this was better than home, enthralling books, the classroom gleamed like a sweet shop. And you referred to your teachers, Mrs. Tilcher. That's a poem in Mrs. Tilcher's class. And then there's a lovely poem, Death of a Teacher. And I believe is that Mrs. Scriven?
Miss Scriven, yes.
Miss Scriven.
Yeah,
Miss
both
Scriven.
real teachers.
Yes. You died yesterday when I heard the hour, home time, last bell, late afternoon. I closed my eyes, English, of course.
Mm.
So you're very affectionate towards them, and they led you along the way, really, as I understand it, from your poems.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had, all my life, fantastic teachers. From Mrs. Tilcher, who would have taught me in what we'd now call Year 6, which would be the top end of junior school. And she once very kindly typed some poems that I'd written and sewed them together, I think with a shoelace in a little booklet. And I just remember the amazement of seeing what I'd written typed or printed, so they were no longer in my own childish handwriting. They were away from me and important and glamorous, that sense that publication gives you. And I think that's what made me want to publish, actually, seeing this little thing that Mrs. Tilcher had typed. And then when I went to big school, which was a convent, they were Catholics, my parents, so it was mostly nuns teaching there, but they did have a few sort of proper teachers for the important subjects like English, and Miss Scriven was my English teacher. And she was an amazing kind of Brodie character. She only taught half the week at the school. The other half of the week she owned a wool shop in the town of Stafford, where she sold wool to people who knitted, all different kinds of wools, and we would go there for coffee. And she drove a sports car and smoked black Sobranis and wore sunglasses. And she would lend me her own books, so she'd come into the classroom with Dylan Thomas, who was her great love, and she lent me his recording of Under Milkwood and
Burton.
And she had Pablo Neruda's love poems in translation, and Rilke. It was all kind of eclectic. There was no pattern to it. She would just bring me books from her own library, and that kind of really did for me. And I began to just be completely obsessed with poetry then. As well as doing the courses here at the Welsh Writing Centre and for Arvon, I also do an MA course at Manchester Metropolitan University in poetry. So working with writers on poetry is probably the largest part of my working life. And I think it does go back to the teachers I had. You could pull it out a little bit more, I think. This line here, trees like naked brainstems out-thinking the sky. I would perhaps suggest take out the naked. And I think, we're surrounded by trees here, that the trees actually couldn't be out-thinking the sky, but actually thinking the sky. There is that sense, perhaps. And it's such a seeable thing, the brainstem, and so startling. Now here, I love this image.